Welcome to Night Coffee Crime, where every chilling tale unfolds under the dim glow of the night. Grab your coffee, settle in, and prepare for a story that will send shivers down your spine. Tonight, we dive into a mystery that shocked New York in 1937. An Easter Sunday turned into a night of terror, leaving a family shattered and a city on edge. This is the case of Veronica Gedeon, a young woman whose life was tragically cut short, and a brutal triple murder that stunned the nation. Let's step into the shadows and uncover the truth behind a crime that still lingers in the dark corners of history. Easter arrived early in 1937, and on the chilly afternoon of March 28th, Ethel and Joseph Cudmer drove from their apartment in Queens to her mother's home for a holiday dinner. The streets of New York were quieter than usual, but nothing could have prepared them for what awaited at their destination. As their car pulled up in front of the 6-story walk-up apartment building, Ethel noticed her father, Joseph Gedeon. A slight man with a mustache, Joseph had been amicably separated from his wife for 3 years. He carried a bouquet of white lily, an innocent gesture that would soon contrast with the horrors that lay ahead. Joseph appeared slightly puzzled as he explained that he had rung the downstairs bell, but had received no answer. The front door was left ajar, a detail that seemed strangely out of place. Unconcerned, the three of them decided to enter the building and climb the stairs. Another ring of the bell was met with silence, but again, the door was unlocked. They stepped inside, unaware that this seemingly ordinary Easter dinner would soon turn into a nightmare. The only sound that broke the silence was the excited barking of Tucci, the Pekingese. The apartment, however, was disturbingly quiet. The trio first entered the master bedroom, shared by Mrs. Gedeon and her daughter Ronnie. Everything appeared in order, the bed neatly made, the room undisturbed. But something felt wrong. In the kitchen, a half-prepared pork roast and a bowl of green beans, some of them already cut, suggested that Mrs. Gedeon had been interrupted mid-meal. The men moved on, checking the next room where Frank Byrnes, a recent boarder, had been staying. Byrnes, an Englishman employed as a waiter, lay on his side with his hands frozen over his face. The sight was unnerving, and Cudmer quickly sent his wife back to the living room, as he and his father-in-law continued their grim search. In the third bedroom, they made a horrifying discovery. Ronnie Gedeon's nude body was found face down on the bed, marks on her throat indicating strangulation. Her nightgown lay discarded on the floor beside her, adding to the tragic scene. The police from the 51st Street station arrived shortly after the call. In the orderly master bedroom, they found Mrs. Gedeon's body lying under the bed, her nightgown ripped. The scene was starkly out of place in the otherwise neat room, and it became clear that something far more sinister had occurred. The young woman who had once graced the pages of detective magazines had now become the ultimate victim. Veronica Ronnie Gedeon, whose beauty had captivated many, was now the subject of a disturbing and sensationalized narrative. Photographers who had worked with her began to reveal and publish intimate, nude photographs from their archives. These images were now splashed across the pages of newspapers, adding a layer of scandal to her tragic demise. The gruesome nature of the triple murders was horrifying, but it was the media's focus on Veronica's sexual allure that became the true centerpiece of the story. She was portrayed as a woman who lived fast and loose, making questionable choices in her personal life. The press painted her as a woman who had consorted with the wrong people, suggesting that her violent death was somehow the consequence of her supposed reckless lifestyle. This portrayal only deepened the public's fascination, casting a long shadow over Veronica's memory, reducing her life to a series of sensational headlines rather than the person she truly was. The police soon discovered more than just Ronnie's 5-year diary. The day after the bodies were found, they began tracking down the names listed in her diary. One by one, they interviewed those mentioned, encountering many nervous individuals, but few seemed to stand out as credible suspects. In the days following the discovery of the bodies, the police revealed crucial details. It became clear that Mrs. Gedeon had been strangled hours before her daughter Ronnie, which suggested a deliberate and chilling sequence of events. Meanwhile, the murder of Frank Byrnes was particularly gruesome. He had been killed with an awl or possibly an ice pick, deepening the mystery of the case. As the investigation deepened, the police questioned several individuals connected to Veronica, including her date on the night of the murders, Stephen Butter, a Wall Street messenger. After a thorough interrogation, he was released, with no concrete evidence linking him to the crime. Another name that came up in the investigation was Veronica's ex-husband, Robert Flower. They had married when Veronica was just 16, but the marriage was quickly annulled. Flower, who was now operating a hot dog stand, seemed an unlikely suspect. Joseph Gedeon, Veronica's father, lived alone in a modest room behind his shop on 24th Street. He claimed that on the night of the murders, he had spent Easter Eve in his favorite saloon, playing skee-ball until closing time the following morning. According to him, he had been estranged from his wife for years due to his disapproval of Veronica's behavior. He described his daughter as a wild, crazy butterfly, but insisted that he could never imagine anyone wanting to kill her. However, the discovery of troubling evidence in his shop soon raised suspicions. Police found a collection of photographs featuring scantily clad women, as well as an old, broken pistol hidden away. These findings led authorities to question Joseph further. The discovery of the gun, in particular, resulted in his arrest on charges of illegal firearm possession, deepening the investigation into his involvement in the crime. 8 days after the murders, Police Commissioner Louis J. Valentine held a press conference, revealing a breakthrough in the investigation. The police were now searching for Robert Irwin, a 29-year-old man who had boarded at the Gedeon home 3 years prior and had been a frequent visitor ever since. Valentine boldly stated, "Irwin is the man." Irwin's background added a chilling layer to the case. He had been committed to a New York State mental institution, where he had become obsessed with the idea that he could never succeed in art or religion. Having studied for the ministry, Irwin was also a talented sculptor, but his obsession with women had plagued him throughout his life. Described as a dangerous psychopath, Irwin became the prime suspect, and police across the country began a massive manhunt to capture him. In Cleveland, a 19-year-old pantry maid named Henrietta Kostansky was flipping through a pulp magazine when she came across a picture of Robert Irwin. Something about his face caught her attention. He looked strikingly similar to a bar boy she had recently met. Intrigued, she approached him and asked, "Say, Bob, what's your last name?" "Murray," he quickly replied, his face momentarily stiffening. "Why?" Henrietta casually responded, "Oh, nothing. But did you ever hear of Robert Irwin?" Irwin's reaction was immediate. "No," he said, avoiding her gaze, and within minutes he vanished without a trace. On June 25th, a man called the Chicago Tribune, identifying himself as Robert Irwin. He claimed that he wanted to confess to the murders, but the Tribune dismissed the call, assuming it was a prank. However, the Chicago Herald and Examiner took a different approach. When they received a similar call from Irwin, they decided to take it seriously. After negotiating with him, they agreed to pay Irwin $5,000 for an exclusive story, after which he would surrender himself to the authorities. The arrangement was made, and Erwin met with reporters in a hotel room in Chicago. As promised, he confessed to the murders, and shortly after, he was handed over to the police, ending the manhunt that had stretched across the country. When Robert Erwin finally confessed, he told the reporters, "I wanted to kill Ethel, Ronnie's sister, because she was the dearest object in the world to me." But in a chilling twist, he claimed that he had accidentally killed the others instead. Erwin explained that he had gone to the Gedeon's apartment expecting to find Ethel. When Mary Gedeon asked him to leave, he first struck her and then strangled her. When Veronica arrived, he terrorized her. But it was only when she called him by name that he realized she recognized him. Fearing that she could identify him later, Erwin killed her as well. Finally, Erwin turned to Frank Byrnes. Unaware of Byrnes' deafness, Erwin entered his room and stabbed him to death in his bed, eliminating any potential witness. Robert Erwin was sentenced to an astonishing 139 years in prison for the brutal murders of Mary, Veronica, and Frank. However, after a thorough examination, doctors declared him to be very definitely insane. As a result, instead of serving his sentence in a regular prison, Erwin was sent to a psychiatric hospital where he would spend the remainder of his life. Erwin's life came to an end in 1975 when he died of cancer, while still confined to the psychiatric facility. The chilling triple murder of Mary Gedeon, Veronica Gedeon, and Frank Byrnes remains a haunting reminder of how unchecked obsession and madness can spiral into unimaginable tragedy. This case not only shocked a nation, but also serves as a stark reflection of the fragility of trust and the darkness lurking beneath the surface of everyday life. Thank you for joining me on this journey into one of history's most unsettling cases. If you found this story engaging, please like, comment, and subscribe to Night Coffee Crime for more captivating true crime content. Your support means the world and helps keep these stories alive. Until next time, stay safe and take care.